Some very topical course sessions we've just seen.
Yeah.
Now, the internet continues to change people's lives in so many ways. Important thinking in that session about
Hmm.
supporting a cyberwise generation to get the best out of it while keeping safe and protecting our well-being.
No, that's so true. Like in this modern day and age, every young person needs to know how to be safe in that online world. And it's so great that the AHA 2.0 guidance has been launched today at this global forum, especially with so much youth engagement going into that guidance.
No, 100%. So let me tell you what we have to look forward to in the next hour. We are going to see some more amazing newsreel from our 1.8 reporters.
And our core sessions are actually about mental health. So that's all about youth leaders breaking the silence. And I think that's so, so, so
Oh,
important.
100%.
I mean, did you know that poor mental health outcomes now affect 1 in 7 young people globally?
Wow.
That's shocking. This session is going to look at how youth are shaping effective services for a brighter future. Or you can join a session on communicating the non communicable, how marketing policy can really protect young people from disease. So, NCDs are the leading cause of death and disability worldwide, and that is a big concern within my region of the Americas. So, this really is a chance for us to add our voice. This call for government commitments to regulate harmful marketing practices which make things worse.
All life saving and really important stuff. But first, let's hear from an incredible mental health activist, Meg Zinat-Wamithi, who has a powerful story to tell. We'll see you later, guys.
For 1.8 billion young hearts, we are one.
Hi, wonderful people. My name is Meg Zinat Wimithi, and I'm a global mental health leader and educator from London, but also the proud founder of My Mapper, which is a global education company that provides young people just like you with the tools, resources to live mentally healthy lives. My team and I are on a very tough mission at the moment to try and ensure that 1 million young people across the world have access to basic mental health education. So thank you so much for being along on this journey. Why is today so important, and why am I so excited to be speaking to you all at this year's Global Forum for Adolescents? Well, because there's 1.8 billion of us. There is, in fact, 1.8 billion young people across the world. And within that, 1.2 of us have been bold enough to say that mental health and well-being needs to be at the top of the agenda. And from me to you, I couldn't agree more. We all have mental health and we all need to start doing something about it. And within there, it's about time is of the essence, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but today. As it currently stands, mental health is the second biggest killer for young people aged 15 to 25. That is, in fact, out of all of the classes that you might sit in, 1.6 of us will be suffering in silence with a mental illness. And this is why we need to do something about it. But before I end up talking a little bit about my story, because that's where it started for me, I actually just wanted to say a massive thank you, and actually that I'm so proud of you all. I'm so proud of each and every single one of us, whether you are there in person, you are streaming online, or will tune into this afterwards. It's not easy to be bold, courageous, or radical enough to stand up for the things that we believe in. And I truly believe that our generation is going to be the one that changes the world. It's not just about talking about the changes that we want to see, it's about being the change that we want to see. So thank you for showing up today. And I just can't thank you enough for all the work that you have done to this point, but that will do moving forwards. So why Meg? Why am I here today? Why does mental health and well-being mean so much to me? Well, when you look at me, do I look like someone that has a mental illness? Probably not. When you look at me, do I look like someone that survived suicide? Probably not. And that's the thing, mental health has no face. It's a silent killer. Unless we speak about it, no one really knows the silent battles that other people are facing. And for me, mine started when I was only 13 years old, and my story is not unique. When I was 13, I was diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, anorexia, and paranoia. Sadly, by the time I was 14, I had my first suicide attempt. And by the time I was 16, I had my second. I had my last suicide attempt when I was 20, actually on my 20th birthday, where I was rushed to hospital when I was sectioned. And it wasn't until that 20th birthday and me being at the point of crisis that I finally received the support that I needed. And the thing is, I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones. And I think it is my duty to do more, to shout about this, because there's not a lot of people that are proactive enough and feel confident enough or safe enough to talk about it. Right now, at the age of 25, I'm a proud navigator, I would say, of borderline personality disorder, social anxiety, and also as a recovering anorexic. And whilst it may feel scary to talk about my mental illnesses are my superpower, and I wouldn't change them for anything, because at the core of it, the only person that can stigmatize me is me. And therefore, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm proud. I'm proud of my mental illnesses. I'm proud of everything that I've gone through, because I think I wouldn't be Meg today. My story with Mind Mapper started with me just sharing my story. And it can for you too. It's as simple as that. It's being bold enough to be vulnerable and realizing that that's a strength. But I do have some takeaways for us all today. So once you finish this forum, what can you do? What can you take away? Here are my top tips. Number one, don't just be comfortable having a seat at the table. Build your own. One of my core mentors said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I feel like for so many of our young people, our voices go unheard, or we're just a tick box exercise. We're always on the menu. And I think the big thing that I really decided with Mind Mapper, I didn't just want to have conversations about change. I wanted to be the change. So instead of being comfortable just having a seat at the table, I built my own, and I invited other young people along on that journey. So think about it for yourself. Who can you collaborate with? Who can you bring involved in the work that you're doing? Number two, and I think number two is a really, really, really big one, which is use your personal story to fuel you. Your story is so powerful, and so many people want to hear from it. So please find safe spaces to talk about it. And actually, a reminder for me to you is always, for all those people, because it has been difficult, definitely been difficult, for all those people that made you feel uncomfortable about opening up, there are 100 people that will make you feel so proud that you spoke up. So it's about finding your tribe. Connect with everyone who's joined the forum, share, meet new people. But when you find your tribe, you'll feel so much more confident with your story. Number three, it's absolutely okay not to be okay. You know, there are seasons that we come in life, and I might seem really confident now, but I do have those times as well that I still struggle, that I feel like I'm going back to old habits, that I need help, and that I actually reach out. So if this is you and you're not going through a great time at the moment, just remember that this too shall pass. And actually, that it's absolutely okay to not be okay right now, and to take your time. You know, getting better, needing support, needing help takes time. Number four. Is it number four? Number three? Number four. I think it's number four. But I think the big thing for me is, don't focus on changing the world. Focus on changing your world. It will feel like there's a mountain of problems that you need to solve. I remember when I first started Mind Mapper, I was just like, I just want to change everything. And actually, it's counterproductive that way. I started thinking about how I can change my world, the things that I can see around me, my schools, my universities, my workplaces, my friendships, my relationships, my peers, on social media. Doing the small things daily leads to big change. Think about doing the small things consistently, and I promise you the rest will just be like a snowball effect. And finally, find what motivates you. For me, it's that 13-year-old girl, 13-year-old Meg, who never ever thought that she'd make it to her 18th birthday, who's now had the privilege to talk to all of you. Remember that we don't do things alone, and that it's about collaborating and partnering with others. I really do hope that you enjoy the rest of the forum. Let's connect. I've been Meg, and this is Goodbye from London. I'm so proud of us. Let's ensure that our voices matter, but that everyone knows that our minds matter too. See you later.
For 1.8 billion young hearts, we are one.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this inspiring session at the Global Forum for Adolescents titled Mental Health Youth Leaders Break the Silence. We are honored to have such a diverse group here of young people. They will share meaningful solutions that they are crafted to address mental health challenges in their young community. I'm Mariana Nascimento. I'm from Brazil. And over the last 5 years, I have been deeply involved with participatory communication and youth engagement as well within my community and in Latin America. And now I'm very happy to work at UNICEF Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, focusing on this vital intersection between youth participation and mental health. So the purpose of the session today is to spotlight the initiatives and solutions young people are crafting to take mental health challenge and to drive positive change. So these young leaders, they will guide the conversation today and they will offer a unique insight to inspire all of us. So today with me, I have Seika Brown, Viet Trin, Milagros Aveiro, Sonia Rancho, David Johnson, Julia Epstein, and Santiago Fernandez. All of them will introduce themselves very soon. But I tell you that each of them, they will bring like a unique perspective. They come from different countries and they are involved in different experience related to mental health. But before we kick off, I would like to tell you that we can receive questions. If you have any questions, please just drop in the chat. It's on the first icon on the right of your screen. So yes, you are more than welcome to send your questions to us. To start, I would like to show you a short video that showcases young voices from across the globe, and they will share their perspectives on mental health. So please, I hope you enjoy the video.
La salud mental puede ser definida como un estado de equilibrio entre cuerpo, mente y espíritu.
Es sentirnos bien con nosotros mismos.
Es tener las herramientas para gestionar tus emociones y vivir una vida satisfactoria.
Es el bienestar psicológico y social de una persona.
Es poder afrontar nuestras emociones y nuestros sentimientos y también demostrarlas de manera saludable. Los primeros en cuidar nuestra salud mental deben ser nosotros mismos.
Cada uno es el guardián principal.
Starts at home. Home is me. That means being able to prioritize my mental health before anybody else.
المفروض يراعي صحتي النفسية بابا وماما واخواتي وكمان مدرستي لأن أحيانا بيكون التعامل معاهم صعب.
No debemos olvidar que la salud mental tiene un componente comunitario y por tanto todas las personas, todos los actores sociales tienen un impacto directo en ella y deben protegerla.
عشان نبقى عناصر التغيير في المجتمع لازم ننشر الوعي الكافي بالصحة النفسية في المجتمع وبين الأسر ونعرفهم يروحوا فين والمين لما يكونوا تعبانين.
We need to first honor our commitment to the cause, whatever cause it is. We need to bring our whole selves to the table if we're to make change.
Las juventudes no solo deben ser tratadas como destinatarios de programas y acciones, sino también deben jugar un papel como agentes transformadores en el centro y al frente de las intervenciones.
Debemos mantenernos en constante aprendizaje y mantenernos informados sobre qué es la salud mental para tener las herramientas necesarias para ayudarnos y poder ayudar a otros.
Gobiernos, empresas, organizaciones no gubernamentales y la sociedad civil en general deben ser guardianes de la salud mental, especialmente de las infancias y las juventudes.
Thank you to all the participants and support organization for this beautiful video. Now I would like to dive into the first part of this session. I will invite Sonia Rancho, member of the Latin American and the Caribbean Network of Indigenous Youth. She will share the mental health challenges and solutions within her community in Guatemala, focusing on the importance of culture. And then we have Seika Brown, who will take the stage to discuss her initiative, YLD Research Initiative, highlighting how culture, personal experience, and backgrounds shape mental health perspectives. So Sonia, over to you, and then you can pass the floor to Seika.
هنا نملك من
Greetings to the UNICEF representatives. And we're talking about global health, mental health for youth, and I represent the network of youth in indigenous peoples in Latin America and the Caribbean. It's very good to be able to exchange thoughts about mental health for women and indigenous youth. As indigenous peoples, our conception of health goes beyond the physical disorders a person can present. It is based in seeking a balance between body and mind, leading to a control of our emotions, our thoughts, and our bodies. And that's why many communities believe that a balanced person is a healthy person. Nevertheless, there are still a lot of stigma about mental health because it is still related to states of craziness or dementia. And I believe that the factors that influence more our balance is mental health. And first of all, we have a lot of misinformation. And in addition to that, the generalization about health, because we disregard the perspectives of each people, their practices, their habits, and their own languages. In addition, the coverage of health system vis-a-vis mental health is very little, because if a youth or a Maya person goes to any psychological service, probably they have to leave their community and go to a private service that will be really expensive. I'm sorry, there's a cut in the video, in the audio. I'm sorry, not receiving the audio right now.
Sus propias expresiones que difícilmente se pueden traducir.
Their own expressions in their language that probably cannot be translated 100%, leading to an interference in communication and lack of understanding for both parties. In face of that, we need to include indigenous communities in creating policies regarding health and mental health, especially women, because we are more exposed somehow to mental diseases due to the situation we live in, because we are those who receive more discrimination according to the United Nations, and this has a direct influence in mental health. Data from WHO indicates that depression continues to be in the first position in mental disorders, and this is twice more as common in women than men. And most of the women in industrialized countries and 20 to 40% in developing countries suffer depression during pregnancy or right after pregnancy. And due to the lack of reliable information, youth lack tools and which lead to alcohol and drugs as an alternative. Because the lack of health attention in or healthcare in their own language, if we had so, this will get closer to the population and eliminate the barriers. I thank you very much, the space, and I give the floor to the moderator. Back to the moderator. On to you, Mariana.
Thank you, Sonia. Now I would pass the floor to Seika Brown.
Hi, everyone. It is so great to be here today. My name is Seika Brown. I'm a 21-year-old researcher with the Karolinska Institute, which is based in Sweden. But over the past 4 years, I've been leading a research initiative that has been examining how mental health is defined across cultures and backgrounds from all across the world, which is very exciting that this is a panel that we're having today because we have many different youth representatives talking about mental health, and I think that's exactly been the point. Because mental health is extremely tied to our cultures and the things that we love, to our religions, to the people that we love, and the things that we participate and practice. And culture is something that should be embraced, but it doesn't need to replace the need and the importance for mental health and mental wellness. And for many countries and for many people, culture is extremely important. It's tied closely to the way that we identify ourselves, to the ways that we celebrate ourselves and celebrate others, and is a huge component of our mental health. However, I think many discussions in the West believe that mental health and mental health care needs to be purely from a medical standpoint. However, I think what's exciting is that across the research that I've been having and the discussions that we'll see today, that mental health is not just medicine, right? It's this level of wellness and this level of care and love that we're able to give one another. And many different initiatives from young people show that young people know what spaces they want and need to participate in. They know what spaces affect them. They know what spaces they would like to engage in. And they know where they want to talk. What's important is allowing young people to take up space. Even in this example, where we're having young people lead a discussion and lead a time where they're able to explore the work that they've been doing and explore the things that they have learned, just like what we heard from Sonia. There's so much and so many young people out there that are not just asking for a space, but they're participating in one. And what they're asking for is you to pay attention to them. You know, young people have been participating in their cultures, talking about mental health, which is something that we've been seeing a lot more since the pandemic. You see a lot more young people experiencing mental illness and struggles with mental health, but they also see a lot of young people engaging in conversations with many stakeholders from across the world, which is exciting, again, that we're representing different people. And so, yes, I think what's been super cool about the research that I've been able to participate in with YLG and the Karolinska Institute is that what we found is that every single country, every single culture is talking about mental health. No matter who you are, where you come from, no matter what you practice, no matter what you believe, no matter what your identity is, it is a conversation that is happening everywhere, which doesn't make it a phenomenon. It just makes it truth. This is something that is current. This is something that has been current and has been ignored. This has been something that has been experienced across not just young people, but everyone from across the world. But what's important is that young people are spearheading this conversation and dictating what needs and cares and resources should be at young people's hands. And we'll hear about the resources very soon from David and other panelists, but what's important is that we realize that it's not just a limited issue to illness. It's not just about those that are struggling. It's not just about people that are sick, but it's about people. Right. Mental health is something that exists in all of us, just like physical health. And people and young people especially know that now all across the world. And so what's important is that we don't just listen to young leaders like us today, but we listen to our families and our friends, to our schools, that we focus on education, that we focus on the people that we can closely talk to in our lives. And research has constantly and continuously proves that. So I'm happy to continue into letting David talk.
Thank you, Seika. Many thanks, Seika and Sonia, for that. I imagine some people might have some questions. Let me just correct what I said at the beginning. The second icon with the one speech bubble is the one that you can send your questions, is the question and answer platform. So the first one is if you want to present yourself, feel free to use the first one, okay? Next, Seika mentioned, we'll hear from David and Viet, who you continue the conversation. David Johnson from Let's Unpack It. He will explore ways to address the stigma around mental health and also to promote hope. And following that, I will invite Viet Trint, who will showcase an innovative LGBTIQ+ mental health network in Vietnam. So David, the stage is yours.
Thanks so much, Mariana. It's been a wonderful conversation so far, and I'm really just motivated and inspired by the work that so many young people across the globe are doing. Like mentioned, my name is David Johnson. I'm the president and founder of Let's Unpack It. We're a youth-led, mental health-focused civil society organization based in the Eastern Caribbean. And our vision is really to build out a Caribbean region where every young person feels safe and empowered to access high-quality mental health services, and where they are free to do so without the fear of ridicule and judgment. Like mentioned in other regions, certainly in the Caribbean region, we have the same challenges as it relates to stigma and certain misconceptions and preconceived notions about what mental health is and what it isn't. We also have challenges as it relates to a lack of awareness and psychoeducation from our schools and right up into the workspaces. And of course, we have similar challenges as it relates to lack of access. And so what we've sought to do at Let's Unpack It is to address these issues, but doing so from a youth-led, youth-focused lens. And so I'd like to speak about four key kind of solutions that we've brought to the fore and what we're currently working on to address some of these challenges. Firstly, as it relates to stigma, we've sought to do this by facilitating intergenerational conversations. We're very aware that by and large, stigma falls along generational lines. And it's not because people want to stay in positions of ignorance. It's really that the world has moved on, and we've developed new knowledge and new terminologies to speak about things that we've always dealt with. And so what we've sought to do at Let's Unpack It is to bring people from all generations together into safe spaces to have these conversations. And so we've been working very closely with youth organizations, with religious groups and other civil society organizations to facilitate these conversations and realize that mental health is something that we all have, and we all have a duty to protect our right to access, our right to support, and our right to care. And so in going about those conversations, we've held fast the tenets of listen, unite, and inspire, which work well with our initials as an organization, Let's Unpack It. And so we seek to really hear people, hear their stories, and allow them that kind of safe space to open up and share, but also to unite them around their common experiences. And we believe in the power of lived experience to bring people together and ensure that everyone feels that the ability to enjoy their mental health and their wellness without fear of ridicule or judgment. And of course, inspiring everyone to kind of, inspire this kind of this region, this world, this community where we can all talk about mental health freely. The second solution I wish to speak about is the idea of building hope and developing self-advocacy through awareness and psychoeducation. It's so apt that the focus of World Mental Health Day yesterday was that mental health is a universal right. And I think for so many people, this seems like a far-fetched theme, given that mental health and mental wellness seem to be things that only people from certain classes of society can experience. And so our duty as young advocates and activists in this space is to empower young people, especially, to be able to activate their mental health, to put it into practice, that it no longer seems like this luxury item. It no longer seems as this buzzword that we use, that it's really practical and providing them with practical skills that they can do this. And it also means calling for psychoeducation within our schools and within our community centers as well, as spaces where young people are. Get them talking about their emotions and their feelings and getting them to connect with each other. Thirdly, another solution that we've put forward is to really focus on youth inclusion and youth consultation. And we've sought to do this through several means in terms of participating actively in panel discussions and other conversations with our leaders within the mental health space. We've also worked very closely with our partners like Healthy Caribbean Coalition on the mental health call to action that celebrated 1 year yesterday. And that call to action sought to bring together young people from across the Caribbean and to bring together their views and present these views to our leaders. And we've also just recently launched our Caribbean Mental Health Focal Points Network, which is going to bring young people from 17 Caribbean nations together, not only to discuss solutions, but to implement solutions. And fourthly, as I close, we're currently working together with Healthy Caribbean Coalition and UNICEF Eastern Caribbean to map resources and services throughout the Caribbean region so that young people no longer have to worry about where do they go when they need help, so that they need not worry about, hey, can I afford access to care? But that we'll have a pool of resources available for them to access. And so my call for all the young people gathered here is to do something. We can all take small actions to create a better world, a world where every young person can really enjoy their right to mental health and well-being without fear of ridicule or judgment. Thanks so much.
Thank you, David. By the way, we have a question that's related to what you presented, but at the end, I come back to that. So, Viet, please, the floor is yours now.
Hi, everyone. I guess just to continue the message that David just already sent to us, I guess my little action, to drop the seed here for this event is that I hope that, through the presentation of mine as well as other youth leaders, it's going to serve as a platform of empowerment for other youth leaders as well. As you participate in this session, I guess the real goal here is to get all of us empowered enough to take actions, to take solutions, and collaborate with other stakeholders to make meaningful decisions. And that's exactly what I'm going to present to you right now. So in just a couple of minutes, I'll be presenting on, my experience being at the forefront of building the LGBTQI+ movement in Vietnam, especially the region and the country where, there's very little policies, if any, legislation on mental health at all. And there are a lot of malpractices and a lot of discrimination and conversion therapy existing for the LGBTQI+ community here in Vietnam. And, reflecting upon my experience, it took a lot of, mobilization of different stakeholders from all levels to be a part and meaningfully engaged in this movement. And lucky enough, I was, privileged, to found and organize the first ever LGBTQI+ mental health forum in Vietnam last year. And then I also got to chair, a very impactful session at the Vietnam National LGBTQI+ Summit last year as well. And both of these events really culminated in the fact that we got a lot of stakeholders from different levels together and, express their commitment to LGBTQI+ mental health, which is a very underrepresented, human rights cause here in Vietnam. And, throughout my process, I served as a leader, and I felt that as a youth leader who was privileged, to be at the forefront of this movement, I had to carry myself in a way that would represent other people meaningfully. And what I mean meaningfully is the fact that I would consult to them and also engage them in different decision-making, processes. So reflecting upon these two different high-impact events in my country for this movement, I intentionally, overrepresented, the youth who are going to be the participants and the consultants for these events. That's the reason why that if you happen to be at these events, you would see that there are a lot of youth, LGBTQI+ youth with lived, mental health experiences, and they get to share a lot of their experiences, but also discuss strategies, co-plan for movement building strategies along with different stakeholders from all level, even from the government, even from the UN level, with psychologists, university lecturers, and researchers, as well as other community-based organization leaders as well. And after all these different events, we got to come together as the LGBTQI+ mental health network in Vietnam, as Mariana, introduced in the beginning. We're an interdisciplinary group of, people from all, levels, as I mentioned, from the government all the way down to the community level, where we all come together, to make meaningful, advocacy platform, for LGBTQI+ mental health. And within this group, I'm lucky enough to be the chair. And the secretary is also, a person who identify as LGBTQI+ youth with lived mental health experiences. And I feel like if that's not resonating anything, I would like to highlight the fact that, the leadership of the people who have lived experiences are so important, and even for like mental health advocacy platforms for even like marginalized populations, that becomes more urgent and become more meaningful. So that's like the reason why I'm really calling and really continuing like the message of David right there, to call upon little actions that center youth leaders at the forefront of decision making globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Viet. Thank you, David. Audience, as you can see, we have different experience, different countries, different they are bringing to the table different stories, and that's why I invite you again to share your questions. It's the second icon with the one speech bubble, so we'll be more than happy to finish the session with your questions. But as we approach the final stretch, I would like to invite Julia Epstein, Milagros Aveiros, and Santiago Fernandez. They will dive into the topic of youth participation in mental health. Julia, she will share her experience as the executive director of the National Youth Institute in Argentina. Then I will pass the floor to Milagros. She will be discussing the outcomes of the recent Youth Mental Health Forum held in Argentina and hosted by UNICEF. And lastly, Santiago, he will provide an overview of the Global Mental Health Summit that took place outside Europe for the first time, and it was also held in Argentina last week. So please, Julia, the floor is yours.
Bueno, buenos días. Good morning. We don't hear Julia. Julia?
Hello, just 2 seconds. Julia is connecting her microphone.
Ahí se escucha? Can you hear me now? Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where, good evening, depending where you are. These instances are key to think collectively on how think the strategy of mental health for the world. I'm Julia, I'm 20 years old. I'm a public servant in the Institute for Policies for Youth. And when thinking strategically from the national state in Argentina, what are the access to work with the youth, mental health, and whatever comes from this discussion? I think it is key to discuss, and this the pandemics created a new paradigm to talk about mental health, and our government incorporated this as a central axis for the 4-year terms because it seems it generated a watershed to discuss how our people is feeling. And we started to think joint strategy. Last week, we had the World Summit of Mental Health in Argentina, the first time out of Europe, which is very important for us to start to open a little bit more to other countries to take part in this discussion. This was a great meeting and very fruitful. And well, some comments adding to what the previous speaker said. I agree with all the interventions, but I would add something that we noticed after the pandemics, which is thinking what changed in the situation of our countries and how does this have a direct influence in mental health. After the pandemics, the countries that during the emergency, after the emergency, we had some economic problems, and in world level, we started to see conflicts in many senses in the agenda of states, of countries, and that for us are transcendental because what changed after the pandemic? The capacity of foresee on think on the future. We are that are youth. How do I go through with my life? And this changed more than the economic paradigms. This also changed and influenced this agenda that I believe it is the first difference I see the before and after the pandemics. We think that mental health is something holistic. If we don't solve the problems of unemployment or housing, there is no way to solve the problem of mental health. And how can we add youth to this discussion, and how can we insert this in society in a way possible? Because getting into the labor market, as we see in the whole world, the complications of the labor market for youth, and for us, it's a matter of concern, because we are who will be supporting the state, the civil society. We are the ones that can solve it, because what we want is, well, those who have the economic possibility of paying for health, they can have psychological treatment and guarantee a follow-up. But those who do not have means, who do not have resources, don't have this follow-up. This is where the state have to guarantee that we all have the same access. This way to see mental health in a more integrated way and think jointly how to tackle it. And we in the national Argentinian government, we are thinking in a series of campaigns. The president with the Ministry of Health, they launched the integral plan to mental health. And what he detected is that there was many problems to access psychologists, psychiatrists, medication, and we still have a problem. And so we launched in first healthcare system a hotline 0800, where there is a professional in the other side to refer the person, wherever this person is in Argentina. They will refer them to the closest mental health center. And with that, we start with this first referral, which for me is where we were failing. Youth and anyone in Argentina, they didn't know where to seek help. And we also have an act for mental health that is pioneer in the whole world, focused on human rights. In Argentina, this law is very old and it is a luxury for us. And what it proposes is a human rights focus, a way to think not on people that are having a problem in mental health and do not stigmatize them as crazy people or dementia, but see them as in any illness, as it would be for physical health. The only difference is mental health is not as clear to the first sight. And maybe it requires more time to identify than when you break your arm. That is more visible. So we start to tackle another problem, which is give visibility to the problem. So before public policy for treatment, we have to incorporate the agenda. And there is a generational problem here. The older people have more difficulty to understand mental problems, and younger generation have this more incorporated and more open to talk about it. So with Ana Martino and another group of scholars, we started this campaign to give visibility. So first, raise of awareness for the society, promoted in social media, in billboards, in the streets, everywhere in our country, to start to talk about the topic and to start to include this in the agenda. For us, it's key to think that states have an organizing role for that, thinking on public policies, because they are the only ones to guarantee that every citizen can have access to mental health. And this will allow everybody to be in a better society. Thank you very much.
Julia, thank you. Now,
thank you, Julia.
She will be talking about the Youth Mental Health Forum that was held in Argentina last week. Please, Milagros, over to you.
Hola, primeramente agradecer el espacio.
First of all, I would like to thank the space and recover some of the words and the difference between one country and another, one government and another, and thinking about the experience in my country, in Paraguay. There's a huge contrast in different governments, because now we have a government that put mental health aside. In Paraguay, we do not include mental health, and it is important to highlight that sometimes mental health is a blind spot. Nobody talk about it, especially in some governments or some zones, some areas and some groups. In the Mental Health Summit, as Julia said, this summit was held for the first time in Latin America, which is a great achievement for us. And I took part in the forum in this summit. And I can say this was a space for participation, integration, and intervention for the youth, as for mental health, education, and other topics related to health and well-being. The summit was held for 2 days in the last week in October, when we worked in the first day some risk factors and protection broke down in different levels, which are individual, family, community, and state government or public policies. Then we went to a space where some of the youth could take part and show some of their concrete actions. I will address some of them and how they achieved this. How do they land this in their communities? And we also talk a little bit about mental health and well-being in schools, especially in Latin America and the Caribbean, and how we, youth in Latin America and the Caribbean, understand and live a very heavy reality in terms of precarious education and mental health. These are two issues that are not discussed when we talk about well-being, and mental health is not something discussed in schools, and it's not something to which teachers, professors are skilled to talk about. And the closure of the first day, we have rural community discussions to give visibility to certain actions and to give visibility to emotions and feelings, because we cannot fail to remember that we have to give visibility to other youth. We also think and we also feel about mental health. The second day of the summit, we talked about climate change and the impact of climate change in mental health. In my personal experience, this was not something interiorized for me. I didn't have this relation with climate change. How can this impact mental health? And I now see that it's very important to talk about that, because it impacts many things. The thing is, we do not relate sometimes climate change with mental health. And in the other presentation, we presented a game that was co-created with America Solidaria, UNICEF, and in which I took part. This game for mental health was officially launched in the Day for Mental Health, and it is based in communities. This is the main idea for the game. So we organized a plan of action on how to get to our communities and how do we want to generate an impact, what is expected to have in communities for adolescents and youth. This is what we worked in the mental health summit. We had about 20 youth for different countries taking part in this Mental Health World Summit. Thank you very much, and I pass the floor to Santiago.
Thank you, Milagros. We have 10 minutes left. You pass the floor to Santiago. Santiago, if you could comment a little bit on the Global Mental Health Forum and talk about the importance of youth participation, it would be much appreciated. So the floor is yours.
Bueno, muy buenos días para todos
Good morning for all of those who are here online. It's a pleasure to share this space as with Mariana, Mili, Julia, probably that we'll see each other again in this path for the advocacy for mental health. I live in a province in Argentina, and I work for the children health in problematic consumption and mental health in my province that is called, in my community that is called Esperanza, Hope. During the summit in Argentina, first time out of Europe, was very important because it represents the commitment made by our minister and the Minister of Health and the health team, and that Argentina was recognized in the world level and was awarded to be the seat for this fifth summit for mental health. It's been 2 years that I work directly with the ministry, and it's a pleasure to see Julia once again. In Argentina, we have a council for mental health for childhood and youth, adolescents and youth, that gives space to people in the civil society, youth mostly, adolescents and youth, so they can take part in an equitable way to understand the main problems in the country, to have an integral answer to that. Throughout these years, we've seen the different problems through a federal diagnostics and in a form that we had to pinpoint the main concerns to apply the Argentinian Act on Mental Health. In the photo, we had Julia and her team, the Minister of Health, and different people from the ministry. We felt ourselves heard because we have one of the biggest manifestations during the application of the Health Act. The thing was the lack of execution of a budget, that we need a 10% or more of extra budget for the Ministry of Health in Argentina. And it's been 1 month, we received the news that this was approved, this 10% more. So we feel part in this process of participation, and we know the importance of that. Well, about the World Summit, I took part in the journeys in October 2nd and 3rd with a group of youth in Latin America. And I was able to see different realities of different countries. And it was nice that the summit opened the doors for 6 youth to take part in the summit and take our voices. Well, just by having a public servant as and the age range as Julia, 20 years old, it's not very common. This is already, it's very uncommon to have young servants and willing to work as Julia is. So I feel that giving place to youth in decision-making areas is something in favor. There will be many situations that will be directly asked, and we have to be part so we can contribute from our knowledge this little brick so we can set our path. Well, this is my participation, and once again, I would like to celebrate this World Summit that we had. Thank you very much.
It's nice to finish the session talk about participation. We still have 6 minutes, so I will just go over the questions that we have. And if you could be very short with the answer, that would be amazing. The first one is from Sylvain from UNESCO headquarters. And the question is, could you share your thoughts on the essential interventions that education systems can adopt to identify mental distress in learners and offer solutions forms of support? I'd like to invite Seika Brown to answer to this question. Please, Seika.
Yeah, I think this is a really great question, especially if we're trying to make schools better. I would say one thing that has been very popular in the past few years, not just in one country specifically, but just across multiple education institutions, has been the idea of a mental health screening, which is just kind of like a survey that young people and young learners take either once or twice or 3 times a year, basically comparing what a student's well-being between the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year, or even the middle. And this can be completely confidential. The students don't have to give their names. It can just kind of be like a numbers basis, and kind of seeing at what points throughout the school year does a student's emotional health drop. And this is good information to know, because teachers and people who are leading these students are able to come in and be like, okay, at this time period or this lesson or at this point, maybe school gets too overwhelming. And the screening also does assist with, is there a lot of like family issues going on in a lot of students' places, mental places, especially like with COVID. It was a great way to check in with students and just see like how that is affecting them. So mental health screening is ultimately just a survey that's given to students, and teachers are able to use the information to kind of make sure that their students are doing well in the check-in. But also ultimately mental health education as a whole is extremely important, and I think that is the biggest intervention in my opinion, and not just for students. I think that's a very big misconception that mental health education only occurs for students, but it's also to teachers, right? So educating teachers on mental health, and especially youth mental health, is a very, very big intervention. And so teaching what mental health is kind of just like basic psychology to mental health wellness, understanding how the brain works and how emotions work. That's very, very important. We learn about our physical health, but we don't learn about mental health. And so making sure both students and teachers understand that is also a really great intervention.
Thank you, Seika. Many thanks for that. I have some questions, but the time is short, so you have like mix and match. This one goes for Dave from Let's Unpack It. Dave, if you could talk a little bit about how to reduce societal stigma associated with mental health. You mentioned intergenerational conversations, but if you could go a little bit deeper, and also how can schools work to raise awareness on mental health and the importance of classroom to be as inclusive as possible. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, great questions, Mariana, and great questions from the audience. I think definitely when we think of stigma, we need to understand what are the root causes of stigma. And I think the root cause, for instance, in the Caribbean is that we have a very challenging relationship with the concept of strength and resilience, given our historic past. And so we feel the need to bottle up our emotions and reject anything that causes us to feel as if we're not strong. So with an understanding of that, having conversations about mental health just generally, making it okay for people to be vulnerable, making sure that when we have conversations with our friends, we're also checking in with them. These small actions can go a long way in terms of reducing the overall burden of stigma. But of course, at large, at the scale of community, nations, and regions, we need to be developing strategies. And we know that there are frameworks that exist. I think of the WHO Mental Health Action Plan and the key tenets that are outlined there already. We have these structures in place. We just need to develop the momentum to implement. And so oftentimes when we think of reducing stigma, we think of very complex and complicated initiatives, but we can indeed start small in terms of within our classrooms, in our community centers, in our homes. And of course, government can play a role as well in terms of developing these kind of campaigns that go to help people to learn how to have these conversations, learn how to access care, and to learn that vulnerability is in fact a part of strength. Vulnerability, when we can connect with other people, we can then seek out and feel very safe and empowered to reach out for help. In terms of the question related to schools, I think integration is the word. I think we need to do more in terms of, from a very young age, helping young people to identify the emotions that they're feeling and learning how to express them. We all know of the pain scale that is used within the medical fraternity. When a child visits a health professional, they're given a scale of 5 different pictures, and they're asked to point on this scale, what are you feeling right now in terms of your pain? Imagine if we can use that kind of similar scale within our classrooms to help every child to communicate on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Hey, how are you feeling today? And then following that up by teaching them, okay, if I am feeling yellow today, here are a few activities that you can use to get back into the green. If we can get our teachers and peers as well to get involved in promoting the idea of mental health, not in terms of its academic sense, But in terms of feelings and emotions, then I think that would go a long way in terms of reducing stigma, but helping young people to know that help-seeking behaviors are okay.
That's perfect, David. Many thanks for sharing. So we have 30 seconds left. I would like to thank you, the audience, the dedicated panelists, and the supporting organizations for this. You all made the session very inspiring and impactful. So thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias. Saludos, and see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.